The Galactic Union was crumbling world after world had fallen to the Typhor Dominion, their war fleets cutting through defenses like a knife through soft flesh. Once proud civilizations were reduced to ashes, their home planets, nothing more than burning graveyards. The Union's leaders had exhausted every possible strategy, every last weapon at their disposal. Nothing had worked. Now only a handful of their fleets remained, battered, broken, barely able to hold formation. They drifted in the darkness of space, their crews exhausted, their hopes fading. The tire gave no mercy. Surrender was never an option. Any species that resisted them was exterminated in a final act of desperation. Supreme Commander Kell of the Union Council gathered his remaining officers. His weary eyes scanned the faces before him, admirals, generals, diplomats. They all looked the same, defeated. "We have one last option," Kell said. His voice was hoarse, heavy with doubt. Admiral Vorl, a battle-hardened warrior, with scars running down his reptilian face, leaned forward. "You mean them, don't you?" Murmurs filled the room. Some gasped, others exchanged nervous glances. "Humans," whispered a young officer. "That's just a myth." Kell exhaled. "It slowly, is it?" He pressed a button on the table's control panel, bringing up an ancient star map. 0 cycles ago, the humans vanished. Some say they were wiped out, others believe they simply left. But there is one thing we know for sure. He pointed to a blinking marker, a distress frequency, one so old that it had been removed from most navigational systems centuries ago. "They gave us this," Kelm continued, "a frequency, a message, and a warning. Only call upon us if there is no other choice." The room fell silent. "And you believe they will answer?" Vorl asked, his voice skeptical. "I don't know," Kelm admitted. "But if we do nothing, the Typhor will wipe us out. This is our final chance." No one spoke. Against him, there was no debate, no argument. They had nothing left to lose. With a heavy heart, Kell sent the distress signal. The transmission pulsed through the void, carried across the ancient human frequency. A minute passed, then 5, then 10. Nothing. Some of the officers hung their heads, others cursed under their breath. Kelm closed his eyes, feeling the weight of failure press down on him. And then a single reply, a voice calm and unreadable, echoed through the speaker's message: "Received." "Stand by." Every officer froze. The room became deathly silent, as if the entire Union had collectively stopped breathing. Vorl's claws dug into the table. "Did you hear that?" Kelm's mind raced. It had to be a trick or a mistake, or the signal was real. A shiver ran down his spine. The humans were out there, and they had just answered. The command center of the Galactic Union's last remaining fleet was in chaos. Officers scrambled across the bridge, their hands shaking as they rechecked their equipment. The message had been real. A human had answered. Commander Kelm stood frozen in place, his mind unable to fully process what had just happened. For centuries, humans had been nothing more than a legend, a footnote in history. Some believed they had never truly existed, just a fabricated tale to inspire hope in desperate times. Others believed they had been wiped out in some ancient war. But now a voice had spoken back. "Are we sure it wasn't interference?" Admiral Vorl asked, his reptilian eyes narrowing in suspicion. "No interference detected, Lieutenant Risk," the Union's top communications officer confirmed. Her long blue fingers trembled over the control panel. "Signal is genuine. We sent the message, and they responded." Kay stepped forward. "Can you trace the source?" Rish's fingers danced across the console. The screen flickered as data streamed across it. The signal had originated from the farthest edge of known space, deep within an unexplored sector. "The source is outside any charted system," she said, voice uneasy. "There's nothing there, no registered colonies, no recorded planets, just empty space." Vorl growled. "Then it must be a trick. Someone is playing games with us." "I don't think so," Kell murmured. His gaze remained locked on the screen. The human signal wasn't just coming from the void, it was moving. And it was moving fast. "The signal is approaching us," Rish reported, her voice barely above a whisper, "at impossible speed." The room went silent. Kell's blood ran cold. No known species in the galaxy could move that fast, not even the Xifar. "What are we dealing with?" Vorl demanded. Before anyone could answer, the ship's long-range scanners blared to life. Alarms rang across the bridge. Officers rushed to their stations, desperate to make sense of the incoming readings. Rish's breath hitched. "We have an object approaching at relativistic speeds." "No, several objects. They weren't there a moment ago." But now, her voice trailed off in disbelief. Kelm clenched his fists. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered, revealing the deep void of space. At first, there was nothing, just the endless blackness of the stars. Then out of the darkness, They emerged sleek angular ships. Unlike anything in the Union's database, their hulls were black, as the void itself almost invisible against the background of space. No energy signatures, no emissions, just silent, deadly precision. The bridge crew stared in stunned silence. They were cloaked. Vorl muttered, his voice barely above a growl. "That's why we didn't see them. They were waiting." Rish corrected for the first time in his life. Kel felt something close to fear. These ships were nothing like the crude brute force war machines of the Kyre. They weren't built for intimidation, they were built for efficiency. And the way they moved, calm, deliberate. Predatory, felt eerily familiar. A transmission came through deep, an emotionless Galactic Union distress signal. "Received, we have arrived." The voice was neither hostile nor welcoming. It was simply a statement of fact. Vorl bared his fangs. "Who are you?" A pause. Then a single word: "Human." The bridge went deathly quiet. The humans had not been extinct. They had not been forgotten. They had been watching. No one on the bridge spoke. No one even breathed. The word human echoed in their minds like a ghost from the past. Commander Kel forced himself to remain calm, but his heart pounded against his ribs. The rest of the bridge crew sat frozen, their eyes locked on the silent dark ships that now surrounded them. Admiral Vorl's claws dug into the metal railing. His voice came out as a low growl. "Identify yourself. Which human faction do you belong to?" A long pause followed. The silence itself was suffocating. Then the human voice returned. "Calm and unredeemable factions are irrelevant. We received your distress signal. You are in need of assistance." Kiln exchanged uneasy glances with Rish. The humans weren't answering the question. It was as if they weren't concerned with political divisions, as if they operated as something entirely separate or perhaps above it. Rish cleared her throat, her voice trembling. "You say you've come to help. But why? Humanity disappeared centuries ago. Most believed you were extinct." Another pause. Then, in that same cold, measured tone, the voice responded, "We left." A chill ran through the crew. Kel frowned. Why? For the first time, there was a shift in the human's voice, a hint of something deeper, something unsettling. "Because the galaxy was not ready for us." A heavy silence settled over the bridge. No one knew what to say. The humans had not been wiped out. They had not been forgotten. They had simply chosen to leave. Vorl's claws tapped against the console. His sharp eyes flickered between the ships outside and the unreadable transmission screen. He was an old soldier, and his instincts screamed that this was a force far beyond anything the Galactic Union had ever encountered. And yet they had come back. Rish hesitated before speaking. "The Cipher Dominion is destroying us. Our fleets are broken. Our home worlds are burning. We had no choice but to send out a final plea for help." Another pause. Then the human's voice came through once more, this time with a quiet, almost eerie certainty. "We know." Kelm's mouth went dry. They knew before anyone could ask what that meant. The human transmission continued. "We will deal with the entire Dominion." Admiral Vorl bared his fangs. "You say that as if it will be easy." The human did not hesitate. "It will be." The room turned ice cold. Kelm's breath caught in his throat. "You don't understand. The Sifar are unlike any enemy we face. They're ruthless, relentless. And their fleet is unmatched. Our most advanced weapons barely scratch their warships." For the first time, there was something resembling emotion in the human's response. A hint of amusement. "We have seen the entire fleet." The display screen flickered, and suddenly new data flooded their systems. Rish gasped, "What is this?" Kelm's eyes widened as rows of tactical readouts filled the screen. Detailed schematics of Sifar ships, weak points, fleet formations, supply routes. Data they had spent years trying to gather now laid bare in front of them. "Impossible." Vorl whispered. Human voice remained steady. "We have already engaged them." A deep, uneasy silence gripped the bridge. Kel clenched his fists. What happened? This time when the human spoke, there was no amusement, no hesitation, just cold, absolute certainty. They lost the bridge, remained silent, the weight of the human's words pressing down on them like a crushing force. They lost. Commander Kilm's mind struggled to process the statement. That Cipher Dominion, the most ruthless and unstoppable force in the galaxy, had lost. Admiral Vorl's claws tightened against the railing. "What do you mean they lost?" His voice was low. Disbelieving. The human's response came without hesitation. "We engaged the Typher fleet. The battle lasted 7 minutes. A cold shiver ran through Kelm. 7 minutes. That was impossible. Even the Galactic Union's best fleets had barely survived against the Kiafar for more than a few hours. And the humans had defeated them in minutes. Rish's voice trembled. How the humans' response was disturbingly simple. Superior technology, superior tactics, superior understanding. Of war, Admiral Voral's eyes narrowed. That's not an answer. The screen flickered again, displaying live footage. What they saw made Kel's breath catch in his throat. A graveyard of Typhar warships floated in the darkness of space, their twisted remains barely recognizable. Some had been split in half, others vaporized entirely. The wreckage stretched for miles, a silent reminder of absolute destruction. "We never saw this," Rish whispered, her voice filled with horror. "And on no one did the human confirmed that Sifar have kept their defeat hidden. They do not want the galaxy to know they are vulnerable." Kel felt his claws digging into his palm. If they lost so easily, why are they still advancing? There was a brief pause before the human responded. "Because we let them." Silence. Voral's fur bristled. What? The human's tone remained unreadable. That cipher needed to believe they were invincible, that no one could challenge them. It made them reckless, predictable. Kel's mind reeled. "You let them rampage across the galaxy." "We observed," the human corrected. "We studied them, we waited. And when the time was right, we acted." The weight of those words settled over them like a suffocating fog. The humans had been watching, studying, allowing the war to escalate, all while remaining unseen. Kelm swallowed hard. "Then why help us now?" The human's voice was quiet. "Because the time for observation is over." A deep, uneasy feeling coiled in Kelm's chest. Humans weren't just intervening, they were making a decision. Voral exhaled sharply. "You said you will deal with the Axire. What exactly does that mean?" For the first time the human's tone shifted. It was no longer distant or unreadable, it was final. "It means we will end them." The screen flickered once more. This time, the image was not of destruction, but of something else, something that made Kel's stomach drop. A fleet, a human fleet. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The ships were massive, their dark hulls reflecting no light, their designs utterly alien compared to the sleek curves of Galactic Union vessels. There were no visible weapons, no exposed engines, just silent, motionless giants waiting in the void, waiting for a command. A single word appeared on the screen: deployment. Initiated. The humans weren't just going to fight the Kiafar, they were going to erase them. "You said." The weight of the revelation settled over the Galactic Union officers like a crushing force. The humans had been watching, waiting. And now, they had decided to act. Commander Kelm stared at the screen in stunned silence. The fleet before him was massive, unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't just its size, it was the way the ship sat in the void, dark and unredeemable, as if the very laws of physics didn't quite apply to them. Admiral Voral took a slow breath, his fur bristling. "How many ships are we looking at?" The human's voice came through the comms, calm and measured. "This is a vanguard detachment. 5% of our total fleet. 5%. Kel felt his stomach twist. The sheer scale of it was impossible to grasp. If this was only a fraction of their fleet, then how many more ships lay hidden in the depths of space? Rish's voice was barely above a whisper. "How did we never know about this?" The human's response was simple. "Because you weren't meant to." A cold silence followed. The Galactic Union had believed themselves the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. They had charted the stars, formed alliances, waged wars. And yet in all their arrogance, they had never even noticed humanity's return. Kel forced himself to speak. "What exactly do you plan to do to the Kiafar?" The screen flickered. A new image appeared, a cipher: stronghold world. Kel recognized it immediately. The Dominion's primary military command center. Its defenses were legendary. No force had ever breached it until now. The image shifted. In place of the stronghold, there was nothing, a barren, scorched wasteland, completely erased. "We already did it," the human said. Kel's blood ran cold. "You destroyed an entire world." Vortal's voice was hoarse. "No," the human corrected. "We removed it from the equation." Kelm's breathing grew unsteady. "How?" A pause, then the human spoke again. "We are not here to play by the same rules as the Hifar. We are here to end them." The weight of those words settled over the bridge. The Galactic Union had called for help, expecting soldiers, fleets, and war, but humanity had returned with something else: in execution. The bridge of the Galactic Union flagship was silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the ship systems, as officers stared at the screen in disbelief. The cipher, Dominion's strongest world, was gone, not conquered, not occupied, but erased from existence. Commander Kel swallowed hard. What did you do?" The human's voice was calm. "We ended a threat." Admiral Voral's fur bristled. "That was a heavily fortified world. It had planetary shields, orbital defenses, fleets stationed across the system. You're telling me you destroyed it in a single strike?" The human didn't answer immediately. Then, in a voice devoid of emotion, he said, "We don't fight wars, we finish them." A chill spread through the room. Rish, the communications officer, finally found his voice. You finished it, just like that, one of the strongest military strongholds in the known galaxy. A new image appeared on the screen. It was a feed from the aftermath. The entire planet was scorched black, as if some immense force had wiped it clean. But there were no craters, no debris, no wreckage. It was simply gone. Kelm's breath hitched. This wasn't a bombardment, this was something else. You're right. Human replied. It was correction. Vorel slammed his fist on the table. This is madness. What kind of weapon can do this? A pause. Then the human spoke again, the kind that ensures that Tiar will never threaten anyone again. Kel felt the weight of those words settle over him. They had called for help, expecting fleets and reinforcements. But humanity had brought an execution. What's next? Kelm finally asked. The human's voice was steady. Your war ends today. The screen shifted, revealing something that made Kelm's blood turn to ice. A massive formation of ships, larger than anything the Galactic Union had ever seen, was emerging from the void. It wasn't just a fleet. It was a judgment. The bridge of the Galactic Union flagship remained deathly silent. Every officer, every soldier, every being present felt the weight of what they had just witnessed. The Sifar Dominion's strongest world had been erased, not bombed, not invaded. Gone. Commander Kel turned to the human, his voice tight. What is that fleet? The screen displayed a vast formation of ships larger than anything the Galactic Union had ever seen. Their sleek angular designs were unlike any known in the galaxy, their hulls dark and shimmering, as if absorbing light itself. Admiral Vorel leaned forward. How many ships? A Union officer checked the scanners, his fingers trembling. There are thousands, no more. I can't count them all. The human commander's voice came through, calm and composed. This is the first expeditionary fleet. Kelm's eyes widened. The first, you mean? There are more. A pause, then the human replied, many more. Silence. The sheer scale of the revelation sank in. The Galactic Union had fought the Cipher Dominion for decades, losing system after system, and yet standing before them was a force so powerful it had wiped out an entire Kiefer stronghold in a single strike. And this was just one fleet. Vorel clenched his jaw. We thought humans were gone. We thought you were just a myth. The human commander's voice remained steady. We were watching. Kelm exhaled, trying to process it all. Watching for centuries, the human said, observing, learning, deciding when to return. And now, you've decided? Kel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The screen changed. A dozen more Cipher strongholds appeared, marked in red. We didn't come back for war. The human's voice carried no hatred, no malice, just certainty. We came to end it. In the distance, the first human warships moved forward, breaking away from their formation. They weren't waiting for orders, they were already executing judgment. The bridge of the Galactic Union flagship was filled with an eerie silence as the realization sank in. The Sifar Dominion's mightiest fortress world had been erased, not bombed, not occupied, but completely obliterated. And the humans had done it without hesitation. Commander Kelm struggled to find words, his mind racing. The first expeditionary fleet. What did that mean? How many more of these ships were hidden in the void? How long had they been waiting? The human commander's voice came through again, calm, yet unshakable. Our next move is already underway. On the massive display in the war room, new red markers appeared. Cipher strongholds, supply lines, shipyards. They were scattered across the galaxy, each one a critical point in the Dominion's vast war machine. Admiral Vorel took a step forward. You're not just attacking the Kiefer, you're dismantling them. The human's tone remained unreadable. War is a disease. If you let it fester, it spreads. The Kiefer have been the infection in this galaxy for too long. It's time for a cure. The Union officers exchanged uneasy glances. For decades, they had fought a desperate, losing war against the Dominion. And now, in a matter of moments, these humans had shifted the entire balance. Kel swallowed hard. What do you want from us? A short silence. Then the reply came, stay out of our way. The cold certainty in the human's voice sent a chill through the room. This wasn't a war for them. This was an execution. On the display, Union sensors picked up new movements. Human fleets already en route to systems. Their approach coordinated and merciless. One of the officers stammered, how long have you been preparing for this? The human commander's response was simple, since the last time we fought a war in this galaxy. Vorel's eyes narrowed. But that was centuries ago, the human finished. And we didn't lose, we just left. Realization hit like a shockwave. The old legends, the forgotten records. Humanity had been here before, and whatever had happened back then, they had chosen to disappear. But now they had returned. The comms officer's voice trembled. Sir, I'm picking up something new. The display shifted, showing a Cipher fleet Mobilizing dozens of warships scrambled into formation, their response swift. They had seen what happened to their fortress world. They weren't waiting to be the next target. They're coming for us. Kelm muttered. The human commander didn't seem surprised. Of course they are. Kelm turned to him, unsure. Do we fight alongside you? The human exhaled slowly. You do what you need to survive. For a moment Kel hesitated, then he looked at Vorel. The admiral gave him a firm nod. They had fought for too long, lost too much. If this was humanity's war now, so be it. But they would not stand idly by. Kelm clenched his fists and turned to his officers. Prepare the fleet. The human commander gave a small nod. Then, let's finish this. Beyond the viewport, the dark silhouettes of human warships surged forward, engines burning bright, and the battle to end the war forever had begun. The stars were on fire. The void between the warring fleets was filled with the dying light of exploding warships, their shattered hulls tumbling through space. Human vessels cut through their cipher lines like blades, their weapons striking with merciless precision. The Galactic Union's battered fleet followed in their wake, desperately trying to keep up. On the bridge of the Union flagship, Commander Kelm gripped the console, watching the battle unfold. He had fought that Kiafar for years, always on the losing side. But this was different. The humans weren't fighting to win, they were fighting to erase the enemy. A warning blared across the ship systems. A cipher dreadnought was breaking through, its weapons locked onto the human flagship. Human command, you have an enemy capital ship on your flank, Kel shouted into the comms. The response came almost instantly. We see it. And then before Kel could react, one of the human warships moved directly into the dreadnought's path. The smaller vessel had no chance of surviving. Its hull crumpled under the impact, its structure breaking apart in an instant. But in that single moment it forced the Tiar ship to slow, to hesitate just long enough. A brilliant burst of energy cut across the battlefield. A human dreadnought, dark and sleek, unleashed a weapon Kelm had never seen before. The Sifar warship didn't explode, it simply ceased to exist. Kelm's breath caught in his throat. What was that? Admiral Vorel stood beside him, eyes locked on the display. A weapon we've never seen before. The human commander's voice crackled over the comms. They are breaking. Kelm turned back to the battle. The cipher forces were collapsing. Their once mighty fleet, so feared, so unstoppable, was now scattering, retreating, dying. A cipher general's transmission broke through the chaos. His voice panicked. We surrender. Cease fire. We surrender. Silence fell across the bridge. For the first time in years, that cipher was surrendering. Vorel's expression hardened. What will the humans do? The answer came not in words, but in action. The human fleet did not stop. Another cipher ship vanished in a flash of unnatural energy. Then another and another. The realization hit Kelm like a hammer. The humans weren't here to win a war, they were here to end it. And that Sifar would not be allowed to surrender. The battlefield had fallen silent where once mighty Sifar warships had stood. Only scattered debris remained. Their fleet, once feared across the galaxy, was gone, not broken, not retreating, gone. On the bridge of the Galactic Union's flagship, Commander Kelm stared at the destruction in disbelief. The humans had not fought like any force he had ever seen. They had not accepted surrender. They had not left survivors. The Sifar Dominion, the most powerful empire in the known galaxy, had been erased. A voice crackled over the comms. Cold, efficient, objective, complete. Kelm turned toward Admiral Vorel, who stood rigid, his expression unreadable. They had begged for humanity's help. Now they were seeing what they had unleashed. Another transmission came through, this time from the lead human warship. A single message: this galaxy is safe. Now do not call us again. Then, before anyone could respond, the human fleet moved. No words, no explanations, no celebration. They simply left ship by ship. Their vessels blinked out of existence, vanishing into the void, as if they had never been there at all. Within minutes the battlefield was empty. The Galactic Union had survived. The Sifar were gone. But as Kelm watched the last human warship disappear into the darkness of space, a cold realization settled over him. The Typher had been a nightmare, but what kind of force could do this to them?